Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for that very warm introduction. I find the topic of the panel today really interesting and critical for the industry, critical for answering ourselves where we are at the moment. As the blockchain projects, as people believing in decentralized future. And before we move on with the round of introductions, I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands the alternative we have in the title. So banking the unbanked is quite obvious and self-explaining, I do believe. But CryptoKitties, for those of you who are not very familiar with the space, maybe a little bit cryptic. So CryptoKitties was a Ethereum, well, maybe still is, Ethereum killer app. And it is a killer app in both senses. So first, it was really popular long time ago, 8 weeks ago. And it literally killed Ethereum blockchain for a while because of the number of transactions. At the same time, it is hard to say that CryptoKitties solve any relevant problem, like banking the unbanked. This is not, CryptoKitties is not even the first world problem. I would say it's a Bay Area problem solving. So yeah, so that's the real alternative, what we are able to use blockchain technologies for at the moment, and ultimately what is the state of adoption. We have a great panelist here, real industry leaders representing really cool projects. So maybe we'll start with the round of introduction, starting with Max, and I would like everyone to introduce not only him or herself, but also the project. And please be honest where you are with the adoption and user base at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Julian. Good morning, Hong Kong. I hope you're as excited as I am to be on the stage. My name is Max Kordek. I'm the CEO and president of the Lisk Foundation based in Zug, Switzerland. And to tell a bit about myself, I'm German. I'm living in Berlin. I'm 26 years old, and I'm in the blockchain space since about 5 years. For me, it's like a journey where I learn new things every day, and it's super exciting. Lisk is building tools for developers to enable them to build their own blockchains, because we think that this technology is amazing and that we need to spread it and that we need to accelerate adoption of it. But development is super complicated. It involves a lot of complex technologies, and that's why we want to simplify this whole process. And that is our journey at Lisk. We want to make blockchain development simple. And to answer Julian's question, where we are in terms of development or adoption, we have to say we are still extremely early. We are still heavily in development. Our users are mostly speculators and traders. We still have to go to many development-related conferences to attract developers into this blockchain space, because, well, let's be honest, it's still small if we compare it to other areas like the Internet of Things or other new nascent technologies which are coming up in the next years, right? So it's early but very promising for us right now, and I'm looking forward to the next years where we can just increase the adoption of development, where those developers can really build disruptive technologies with the tools we will provide to them. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm Martin. We started building prediction markets actually already 6 years ago. We started building a Bitcoin prediction market, and since 3 years working on Gnosis, that is a project I'm representing now and I co-founded. Yeah, it's a prediction market platform on Ethereum. Again, we started 3 years ago when Ethereum wasn't even live, starting developing, and we're one of the first applications kind of in a very early stage, launched in a very early stage, 2 weeks just after Ethereum launched. But to your question, well, it's still early. Even though we kind of were in the process from the beginning, there are kind of, you want to build that and kind of on that way, you discover there are all those pieces that are still missing. So we kind of had to build first other things, infrastructure components that are now, in a way, their own products, but are not necessarily what we wanted to build initially. So where are we at? Well, we had a kind of live or a demo with or a test run with a few hundred users, and so far, I would say our main kind of target group at this stage is actually still other developers. We want them to build applications on Gnosis.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brad Zastrow. I'm the global head of business partnership or business development for Dash. We are a blockchain payment network. We are an alternative form of payment using digital currency, in this case, Dash. Our goal is really freedom for money. And we look at our environment with really serving 4 different types of customers. We have our users, we have our individual merchants, we have larger business partnerships, and then we also have developers. Our overall value proposition is really, I think, around kind of 3 key things. We are extremely quick, so near Visa-like transaction speeds through our instant send feature. We are extremely inexpensive to transact as well. So the instant send is currently about 4 US cents to actually transact. And then the third is our governance model and how that works in relation to a self-funding treasury system to help invest in the network and invest in our partners moving forward. So what I like about that specifically is it allows us to take a proactive approach. We share our block reward between both the miners and another layer called the master nodes, which are our shareholders. And they're the ones that then vote on proposals on a monthly basis. What happens is 10% of that block reward is what's used to actually fund that treasury system. So it creates that budget system that doesn't rely on outside investment or external forces to propel that network. So no, very excited. I think as far as adoption and where we're at, like a lot of people in this space, it's still very early days. We have over 2,000 merchants, but again, globally, that is a small number. And we're averaging around 9,000 transactions a day. What we've found is also, though, in more niche areas, one of our areas of focus is around the unbanked, and that's where we are seeing a lot more adoption at a grassroots level, specifically, for example, in Venezuela right now.
Cool. Well, really happy to be here in my home of Hong Kong, speaking to all of you. So I'm co-founder of ZenCash. Right now, I'm focusing mostly on academic partnerships and governance. ZenCash is essentially an evolution of Zcash technology that kind of expands on the principles of embedding ZK snarks into the blockchain and creates a holistic platform that also supports distributed messaging and distributed publishing services in an entirely enclosed, encrypted space. And so we like to say that we're Dashifying Zcash. We have definitely taken some of the principles from Dash's governance and built these out in a secure node network that has a very low barrier to entry and allows users from around the world to stake a certain amount of Zen and participate in essentially voting decisions. So where we're at right now, we're focusing mainly on scalability studies alongside IOHK, who is our research partner. And we're also focusing on building out this governance model. We have about 40,000 community members. We like to say that they all believe really strongly in the right to human privacy. And we also, since launch of Secure Nodes, which was in January of this year, we already have about 7,500 up and running around the world, which is pretty exciting for us. And we're really excited for 2018 and the opportunities that hopefully will come, especially in regards to helping people in really stressed economies, specifically Venezuela, post-Soviet states, and certain African nations as well.
Hi, good morning. My name is Federico Ast. I am from Argentina. It's a country that had lots of problems in the past, right? Because of governance and bad institutions and A couple of years ago, I started to become like obsessed with how can we transform justice systems, because they are very slow, they're very expensive, and ordinary people like cannot really have access to lawyers, maybe on justice. And I started doing research on that, and starting from the point of view of the problem. I was not talking or thinking about blockchain at the moment, but then blockchain came as the technology that could solve this problem, right? And that's how Kleros was born. It's a decentralized autonomous organization that it's a justice system on the internet that chooses jurors using game theory for adjudicating disputes in a fast and transparent way. And we are now at a proof of concept stage and starting to test the system and see how it works, and very excited about what's coming forward.
Hey, my name is Yuri Lobyntsev. I'm co-founder at Cindicator. I'm 31 years old, from Russia originally, and for the last 8 years I live in decentralized mode, 50% of the time in Russia. My background is software development, and at 8 years I'm moving with entrepreneurship, and Cindicator is a 4 years startup where we are building a platform for effective decision making. We combine a collective mind of mostly financial analysts. At this moment we have about 100,000 of financial analysts that are contributing their mental assets into the system, and we combine it with artificial intelligence. So this is what we call hybrid intelligence for effective asset management. And this is the ecosystem, and we are at the very beginning of the process. Still, we have a really long path to go, but I can say that the adoption of our token is already showing its success, and the utility token of Cindicator is incentivization of participants of the ecosystem. These people and our community is very active and very constructive. So we experiment with governance, with decision making, not only in terms of investments, but also in terms of strategy of the whole ecosystem. And I'm very excited to see how the tokens are changing the mind, and how the ecosystems of the projects are becoming kind of virtual governance systems. And now I can say that our community is virtual governance split it around 160 countries of the earth. So it's really decentralized.
And I'm CEO of Golem. Golem is the centralized market for computing power. So a little bit oversimplifying, it's Airbnb for computers. And we are in a late alpha, moving into beta next month, hopefully with the launch on Ethereum mainnet at the same time. Okay, guys, so it seems that although our projects are on a different stage of development and adoption, like in every case, it is quite early. We don't have like a project here like with a 1 million user base. Hopefully that will change in a year. And I'm pretty sure that like we are all convinced that our projects will have like millions of users in a year. So to not like repeat ourselves, what do you think has the greatest potential for the mass adoption in the next 6 to 12 months, apart from your projects, apart from the projects on the panel? What do you think like you would have the biggest hope for bringing blockchain and decentralized technologies to the people? Anyone? Yeah, Martin?
Yeah, I would say those short or relatively short-term things. It's hard, but one thing I discovered from the Ethereum ecosystem, there are tiny pieces, and if you look at it, kind of defining the standard for a token. Kind of that was a process, and you would need to kind of write the smart contracts, and that was a process that took, I would say, 6 to 9 months. And it was a tiny piece, but kind of what it enabled, well, is quite huge. And I think we will see those that is a little bit the beauty of this decentralized world, that you kind of add a little tiny piece, and suddenly everyone can jump on it, and suddenly everyone can use it. So I like to think of those as crypto primitives, or so those small elements, and I think we will see more of those small elements, and that might be elements around governance, and suddenly everyone can use it. Or there is this token created registries. I'm pretty excited about it. It's essentially just a thing where you have a list, and you have a mechanism to add things to the list or remove things from the list. And it sounds kind of, well, not very spectacular, but again, a token also doesn't sound very spectacular. But I think as soon as those things are ready and proven to work, well, you will kind of massively see then, it's possible that you see a massive explosion of suddenly everyone is using it, and suddenly it becoming a huge thing.
Conceptually, I think for mass adoption, it has to go back to UX, the user experience. So not maybe so much a specific project. I know you said I can't talk about mine on this question, but joking aside, I mean, if you look at where the user experience is right now, we're not going to get our parents or grandparents on the blockchain. We have to make that simpler. It scares people in the sense that you lose your keys, your money's gone. You get an address incorrect by one digit, your money's gone. So that user experience needs to be improved before the everyday person, I think conceptually, is going to start using it, you know, on a bigger scale. Project-wise, what I would, I guess, a project that I like, that I would love to see some stronger mass adoption, I think is Civic. It's highly relevant right now with everything that's happening with Facebook. It's a project that I do like, and I think that concept around you know, managing your own digital identity is extremely important.
Yeah, there is another important thing that we have to take into consideration. So this is very early stage. Like if we were talking about the television industry, so when are we going to have like good programs for people to watch? Like that's the user interface, right? Well, we are still building like the transistors and the chips that make the TV work, right? So we need to make that right, and then we're going to move forward on applications that are going to change people's lives. But that's something we have to take into consideration. This is a stage of protocol development still.
So I'm pretty excited about the Lightning Network on the Bitcoin network. I think it's one of the major hindrances for the entire industry to solve the scalability problem. And I'm just looking forward to a solution for that. And I think a first major step will be the adoption of the Lightning Network to, well, increase adoption and just increase the, well, usage of cryptocurrencies itself, that it's not just something you hold onto for the rest of your life, but that it's something you use in your everyday life in order to order, let's say, a sticker from the Blockstream shop or to pay for coffee. I think the Bitcoin network itself is not designed to do that, but the second layer solutions on top of it, like the network, the Lightning Network, are extremely nice solutions in order to bring that utility part into the network itself.
Yeah, I think a beautiful thing that we get to recognize is that the industry is still so nascent. So I'm really, really excited about experimentation in the back end, dealing specifically with scalability. So this would mean like looking into different consensus mechanisms, and then also like directed acyclic graphs are pretty cool. So seeing a bunch of those like be implemented and stress tested this year will be, I think, just a great development for all of us. And then kind of conversely, also speaking about like access points, you know, better payment gateways, better decentralized exchanges, and then better like fiat to crypto exchanges with like good UX, but also regulated with decent KYC processes that don't take 3 months. These are just all basic things that need to be vamped up to, like you said, make users just more comfortable with cryptocurrencies, because the idea that you can't cash out easily, or it's really, really hard to like time a purchase because it's just ridiculously hard to get an account. This is not something that's going to allow people who don't even have investing experience and are potentially like entering the digital realm for the first time to be comfortable, to join us in the space.
This is interesting because to me that discussion, although we were to talk about applications and dApps, like is going down to the protocol levels, because it turns out obviously like scalability is resurfacing again. UX problems that we talk about are the result of not the fact that blockchain companies cannot afford decent UX specialists. They are able to afford them, but of the problems that we have on technology level, and so on and so on and so on. So what do you think? Maybe we should talk not about the state of dApps today, but about like what is possible and what is not yet possible, and why not? Martin, you want to say something?
Yeah, I can bring the example here. So again, we wanted to build this prediction market, and like we're still doing that, but over 1.5 years ago, well, we had to create something as simple or kind of a missing infrastructure component as a multi-sig wallet. So could kind of just a wallet where multiple party could have kind of shared access, because we wanted to do this token sale some time ago, and of course the keys or the funds shouldn't be held kind of just by one key, but instead by many, and it really didn't exist at the time. Right now, it's as a smart contract, it holds the most funds of all smart contracts. It holds many billion. This multi-sig wallet we developed, but now we're trying to get a step further and trying to improve those UX issues and offering that as a solution to kind of normal users. Currently, it's only used by teams. So the idea is, well, you have one key on your phone, one key on your computer, and kind of the user doesn't even have to think about keys. They doesn't need to know about keys. They just think of devices. You have 3, 4 devices, and if you lose one device, well, you have still other devices to kind of change that key. And there might be, if you lose all devices, you can also kind of have backup solutions where you don't have to store down your seed phrase and stuff like that. So yeah, that is, again, one example of pieces that are missing to then actually build those apps or dApps.
That's actually what we're building right now with Evolution. But to your point, that technology has to come first, building that behind the scenes, and then the output, if you will, from the user, in our case with Evolution, will be you don't transact on a crypto address. You're transacting based on buddy lists. You're paying $100 to Karen or Bill or Dad or Mom. And again, creating that just kind of behind the scenes. All that technology, though, of course, still has to be built first.
Go.
I think a really big point of vulnerability in the industry right now is actually during the KYC AML process. With all of these new exchanges that users are being onboarded to, every single time it requires application or submission of your address, proof of address, ID, sometimes a selfie with holding up like this is only going to be used for Kraken.com and the date and your signature. And so the fact that across all of these potentially small exchanges that sometimes don't outsource KYC processes, our most personal data is just being stored, and we don't necessarily know how. I think that's super risky. So I'm really excited for digital identity verification projects that can then kind of develop KYC gateways, potentially using ZK Snark technology, where users can really easily submit, essentially claim and be validated an assertion such as like their identity, and then not have to give actual like proof to each independent processing platform. I think that's like really, really exciting, and it gets more interesting and complex when you think about it in the context of privacy, right? Because if I'm trying to remain anonymous when using these digital platforms, how do I go through the KYC AML process? I think we had a hackathon actually this weekend. Zen partnered with legal hackers, and we worked in 50 so countries around the world to kind of hack a governance model for our community. And this is the problem that they kept coming up against. Like, how do we allow users to maintain their privacy and anonymity, but still make sure that one human gets one vote over a system because their identity has been verified? So I think over the next year, that's going to be a really interesting conceptual challenge. And I'm excited to see like who cracks it, pretty much.
And just wanted to build on what Martin just said. At the beginning of the ecosystem, so you were building a platform, and you had to build all these services connected to the platform because nobody was building that, right? But now that the ecosystem is starting to become more mature, specialization is arising. And so you have like different projects that are specializing in different parts of the ecosystem, doing just one thing, but doing that very good. So in our case, it's arbitration, and in other cases, so Martin is like prediction markets. So I think that the ecosystem will move so much faster as we start to, each one of us, pick one vertical and work very hard on that one.
Yeah, hitting what was said above, I definitely agree with that. Governance is the area, but I'm very optimistic about hash graph and decentralized synchronous graph that will allow, I believe that this will allow adopt finance industry and make micropayments fast and cheap. Medical industry was not mentioned, and I'm very positive about that. Also, we didn't mention decentralized file storage and decentralized computing. This is the area where utility tokens can be very adaptive. And also, there are new kinds of ecosystems and technologies that create utility tokens that could be adopted by users in creating content or creating, like one of the projects with artificial intelligence that targeting average audience that and huge mass of people that are marketing the data, and it's very simple work where utility token incentivizes people to get into and educate them.
Okay, guys. So now the last question. A couple of months ago, I think, when the market cap of the space reached $500 billion, there was a famous tweet by Vitalik Buterin. It was like read on stage yesterday, so maybe I will not refer to all the tweet. But basically, it was like that. Yeah, well, the market cap is $500 billion, but you know, how many unbanked have we banked? How many Venezuelans have we protected from hyperinflation, and so on and so on? And like the conclusion was the question, like, have we deserved it? Obviously, this is not $500 billion at the moment, but still pretty close to it. So, have we deserved it? Like, who took most of the benefits so far, and who you think like could prospectively benefit most from the technology? Because I think that the benefits are very concentrated and limited right now. And as we want to build like the centralized future, obviously those benefits should be like really distributed as well.
And I would like to raise one more question here. Do we really own it? If we ask if we have deserved it, isn't it just a number? Isn't it an illusion that the value with this amount is there?
Yeah, well, that might be very well an illusion. Yeah, obviously. Still, the question is valid.
Yes. So
have we deserved that illusion even?
So I would say like I'm in no way to decide if humanity like deserved it or not. But I would say like the brightest minds on this planet are working on blockchain tech right now. Like it's absorbing all the talents from different industries. And if you're investing, you're always looking into the future. You're looking for the potential the technology has. And for me, blockchain technology definitely has a huge potential, which can disrupt like entire industries. And I have no idea about the actual value where it should be evaluated at, but I just think that behind this whole like topic are so many more topics yet to discover that the true potential is just not really like visible at this stage. And that's why, if I come back to the question, if we have deserved it, I would say it's not a matter of if we deserve it, it's a matter of let's just push it forward and let's make us deserve it, you know?
I think right now the benefit exists with primarily in the creators, the speculators, and in the investors. The majority of that value, that's where it sits. I think the intent is definitely to push that and bring that to unbanked people, like what we're both doing with Venezuela, for example. Volatility is a disincentive for, say, us up here to want to transact with digital currency. But when you do flip that lens to someone that is in Venezuela or in Zimbabwe, the national fiat actually is more volatile than digital currency. So it's a completely different paradigm. And I think that's where we're starting to see momentum. Are we there yet? No. But I think the focus is there with people. I think, again, the intent is also going there, but the value at this point still sits at the higher levels.
There's an author of History of Technology from Venezuela who's called Carlota Perez, and she always speaks about when you have a new technology cycle, it starts by high speculation and big bubbles, and that's what brings capital to the right place. Of course, some of that is going to be wasted, as it happened in the 90s with the internet and the bubble. So why would this be different, right? But in the end, so all this capital that is coming to the area and connecting with the good teams and the good ideas, this is going to like eventually change the world. Some of the companies are going to fail, but some of the Googles, of the Amazons, and the Facebooks of the decentralized age will emerge. So yes, we will deserve it some years from now.
I always think it's a little bit funny how founders are always asked this question. And I like to turn it on the audience a little bit, because if collectively we're trying to bank the unbanked, I would just say that money talks, and if investors are better at unifying around that vision and around that intention, I think that's when real value can be created for end users. But I do agree that right now value is being captured mostly by investors, creators, and founders as well. So I hope that over the next year, projects that are kind of hacking around issues that will really benefit the emerging world will get a little bit more attention, because I think there's a lot of potential for like learnings for all of us. But it really is on the people in the audience and investors around the world to, you know, decide to do due diligence and then invest into those coins.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Just a small note on the totally first agree. Well, people who benefited most are us so far, but on the unbanked the banked, I actually prefer the the Omise slogan. Unbank the banked, right? Yeah. But anyway, so I mean, I think it's more exciting to find new paradigms and not kind of just say, well, we kind of should try to get the unbanked into a banking system. Yeah. Let's create a better system, actually.
Yeah, well, I agree that we should look for flying cars and not faster horses. Okay, yeah, well, this is really appealing perspective to me, that although like maybe it is a little bit too much and too fast, that help us in many ways. And when I see like the great talent acquisition to the space at the moment, I'm pretty sure that we will be moving faster and better, like with every coming months, because even when I compare like where we are at the moment and a year ago, with the number of people, number of great talents trying to solve the hard questions. I'm really optimistic. But apart from like hiring more talented people, going to more conferences, spreading the world more and more, what else can we do to advance our ecosystem, our blockchain industry faster? What are your thoughts on that? You can add to that like your final thoughts on that panel because we have only 5 minutes left.
Yeah, so what holds us is technology, regulation, and user experience. So we have to move on all these 3 dimensions. We're working on technology, so we are hiring talents and deep diving there. We have to work with regulations, so we have to set an intention and go into that dialogue all over the world and help governments form these laws and understanding of this industry. And on the 3rd dimension, we have to educate average people. So we are all responsible for sharing the knowledge and bringing it into mass.
Yes, just wanted to say that in the end, technology is about solving problems. It's blockchain, AI, or whatever technology. It's about saving time, making things faster, cheaper, right? So, and I think it's very important for all of us in the ecosystem to keep the eye on the problem we want to solve. Because why is blockchain so cool? Because it's going to enable us to do things much faster, much cheaper, and in a much more transparent way than the previous stack of technology. So I think that we should always keep an eye on what's, in the end, the problem we are trying to solve. I am from Argentina, right? And like a couple of years ago, we had currency controls in the country. So I couldn't like send money abroad. So for me, cryptocurrency was actually a way to solve the problem of sending money abroad, right? So, and that's why I think that some of the key use cases and killer apps are going to come from the emerging world, right?
I think if I was giving this advice a couple months ago, it would hit home a bit more because we were in a euphoria back then, and now the market has certainly corrected. But I think something we all need to keep in mind is not to let all of the speculation and hype distract us from our intention and why we're here. I think it's also really important to leverage the ethos of the blockchain space in general and just be super supportive to other founders and other teams. Because at the end of the day, like, we're an open source community. A win for one team is a win for everyone. And just generally to be compassionate to new people entering the market. It's risky, it's scary. Like, there's no way to do it right because the market is ridiculously inefficient and there's a lot of asymmetrical information. And so I think just showing up to your communities and really trying to educate about the why blockchain is so important and crypto is so important instead of just like the how to make short-term gains. I think that's, yeah, a lesson that we should all learn.
And agree with what Yuri was saying, and specifically around the regulation piece. I think that's coming. I don't think that's something that's going to be avoided. And I think there's a lot of education to what Yuri was saying as well. I mean, you still see politicians that think that Bitcoin's anonymous, which is obviously quite far from the truth. So at the end of the day, we can either have a seat at the table and work with regulators and try to influence and educate and show them why their misperceptions are just that, not accurate, and their misperceptions, or we can be steamrolled by those regulations. So I'd prefer to have the seat at the table.
On the question how to move faster, I would say actually more CryptoKitties. No, I'm serious. I'm serious. I'm serious. So it kind of I would say experiments are needed. So and I see that as an experiment. And to be honest, I'm very happy that it is just CryptoKitties. So kind of I would say let's start with those things that are not life-changing because, well, the technology is not robust, or I would be quite skeptical to do things that are life-changing for people at that stage. So I'm very happy kind of about those experiments where, well, if it breaks something, well, then it breaks something, but it's fine. So let's try to break it and let's do experiments and by that getting to better and more secure and more robust systems.
Yeah, so one of the key learnings I had from my partner Oliver Beddoes, who I had the pleasure to found Lisk with, is that you have to focus in life, okay? And let me be a little bit controversial here. I think we should be on less conferences and be longer in our offices and just work our asses off. I mean, we have the responsibility to make this technology as widespread and as awesome as we are always talking about. So I think we should just work, we should just contribute as much as we possibly can. We should get as many people into the space as we possibly can and just make it happen, make it reality. And I think everyone on stage is really passionate about it and everyone's really doing it. And I can just tell it to everyone in the room, just work your asses off, contribute. Do whatever you can to make this happen. Let's build the future which is decentralized.
And there is also one important thing that I want to mention, that behind this digital assets revolution there is an ideology, and that it is aimed to solve our problems, and that we have to collaborate all together with humanity and solve the most important problems of our civilization.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. So the conclusion is that more CryptoKitties and unbanking banks and less panels. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.